This podcast is made possible in part by Patreon support, and I'd like to say thank you to our newest patron who just joined the $3 a month plus alpha tier, Jillian or Gillian Wachowski. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation of your name is. I'm so sorry, but I really do appreciate you becoming part of the Patreon. So the $3 a month plus alpha tier comes with access to Japanese Plus Alpha, which is a podcast that I do about the Japanese language, and I talk about all sorts of quirky things about the Japanese language. So if that sounds interesting to you and you want to make sure that I can keep producing this show, then go check out japankyo.com/Patreon and sign up for the $3 a month plus alpha tier. Also, don't forget that you can support the show by picking up a t-shirt over at kimitodesigns.com. That's KIMITO designs.com. Just posted 2 new t-shirt designs, so go take a look. Welcome to Japan Station. I'm your host, Tony Vega. All right, so just a quick little thing here at the top of the show, because it certainly seems like more and more people are finding Japan Station. So if you're a new listener, welcome. Thank you so much for giving the show a shot. And if you're a returning listener, hey, thanks for coming back. So just in case you're not aware and you're wondering who the heck is this guy talking right now, well, my name is Tony Vega. I live in Hawaii, where I work as the editor-in-chief of a magazine called Wasabi. And I graduated with a master's degree in Japanese language and linguistics from the University of Hawaii. I've also lived in Japan, and I've been studying Japanese and stuff about Japan for over 20 years, I guess. I mean, I don't actively study really anymore, but I do use the language every single day. So I started japankyo.com, a little blog about Japan and Japanese news a few years ago. I think it was 2017, if I remember correctly. I think so. I can't even remember at this point. But yeah, it was a few years ago. And then that led to me launching this podcast and then another podcast called Ichimon Japan. It's also about Japan. I also do another podcast called Japanese Plus Alpha, which is only for the patrons at this point. So japankyo.com/Patreon. You can sign up over there if you're interested in that. It's about the Japanese language. And I also produce a show about Hawaii called Transmissions from Hawaii. That's another podcast. You can find that at transmissionsfromhawaii.com. So yeah, I do a lot of stuff. And on Japan Station, I talk to interesting people about their connections to and expertise in Japan and the Japanese language and all things Japan. So hope you enjoy the show. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to do that so you don't miss any future episodes. And that also helps me out because it helps the show keep on growing. All right, so let's get to today's episode. My guest today is a restaurant owner based in New York City. He owns multiple restaurants in Brooklyn as well as in Japan. His name is Yuji Haraguchi. So Yuji is a very interesting guy. He's from Japan, but he made his career in New York. I mean, he started in Boston technically, but you're going to get to hear what happened. And then he ended up in New York, and then he opened up restaurants in Brooklyn and a very interesting place called Osakana, which is basically like a Japanese style fishmonger, I guess you would say. It's a store. They sell fish, and it seems like a very, very nice place with some great quality stuff. Also, the food that he serves at Yuji Ramen and Okonomi just sounds very, very good. Some of the dishes that you're going to get to hear us talk about today sound just like I would love to go there the next time I'm in New York and try out some of his stuff. But anyway, if you want to find out more about his restaurants, of course, you're going to get to hear more about them today in the conversation. But go check out the show notes at japanstationpodcast.com or in your podcast app. But anyway, let's get to it. Here is my conversation with Yuji Haraguchi.
The next stop is Japan Station. The doors on the right side will open.
Where in Japan are you from? Were you always thinking that you would get into food as well?
Yeah, so I'm from Utsunomiya city of Tochigi.
Oh, gyoza.
Gyoza, yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then I spent most of my time as a student in Japan, but had a opportunity to do study abroad in Salem, Oregon when I was in college in Saitama.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I spent about 3 years, and then just studying like liberal arts, so nothing particular related to food. But I just graduated from this small university, private in Salem, Oregon, and then until then I had really no interest in food.
Oh.
Yeah, like zero.
Uh-huh.
And I got a just like regular desk job after college because I really didn't have any like career plan or any like specific dream of what I want to do as a career. So I just got a job that was available through the university that I was going to. And then it happened to be close to my younger sister's college in Kanagawa.
Mm-hmm.
So we started living together, and the issue was none of us cooked. So one day I just started cooking, and then from that point, that became a really big hobby of myself.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. And then, I spent 2 years in Japan. I worked for the same company, but I always cooked for my sister, and also weekends I always went to supermarkets, look at grocery stores, trying to get different ingredients and fish and meat, and then trying to just look up some magazines of food, and then trying to do what I think is like my own restaurants at home.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of how my food career started, more as a hobby.
Really?
Yeah. But like when I started cooking as a hobby, my dream became opening up my own restaurant. That was a very immediate, and it was very determined. So I just kept cooking for about 2 years. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. So, okay. So you, of course, you do end up opening more than one restaurant, but not in Japan, in the US. Like, how did you end up in the US and going about that?
Yeah. So like, I was always looking for opportunity to leave the jobs that I had in Japan. And then, but it was just like one of my family members just relocated to Boston. So I just took that as an opportunity and just came together. Yeah. And then I thought that was like, okay, it's a great time. Whether I work at a restaurant, whether I work, I go to a culinary school or something. So I could really change my career toward food. Yeah. But I just realized after that, the Boston is as expensive as New York for a living. Yeah. And then just realized that I can't really live. Yeah. So I looked for a job that's related to food enough so I can kind of pursue my dream still, and then still pays the bills. And then I found this Japanese seafood company in Boston Fish Pier. And then I just asked for a job if they have any positions available. Yeah. And then they did. So that's how I really stepped into the food industry, but more in the seafood industry to start. But it doesn't really mean that I was really into seafood. I just wanted to get any kind of job that gets me close to my dream. And then I had no idea how that was going to help me later in the career, definitely.
Yeah. Huh. So, okay, so you get into the fish industry, and did you learn a lot? Did you know already a lot by then? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, I had zero knowledge and zero experience with fish. Yeah. So it was very exciting every day because everything was new. Yeah. But the company's like main client were mostly sushi restaurants. The company was located in Boston, but we were importing a lot of fish from Tsukiji Fish Market, Japan. At the same time, we're sourcing fish from the local American fishermen. And then my job was always trying to learn, the knowledge in sushi to start, and also try to understand the grading the fish, how to, select the fish for the customers. Did a lot of customer service. And then, that's kind of like, I kind of like taught myself through selling fish to the customers, because customers, some customers are super nice and told me a lot of things. And then my senpai at the company was very nice. And then, you can always search something on the internet. And also, whenever I went back to Japan, I always went to visit the subsidiary companies located in Tsukiji. And my senpai always showed me around in Tsukiji, took me to a really nice sushi restaurant. So
Nice.
Yeah. I always loved sushi, but I was very new. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you work with a lot of like Japanese clients or a lot of American clients?
Yeah. So I had no idea what to expect before arriving in Boston. So I expected that, like I love Italian food as a hobby, before coming to Boston. And I always went to nice Italian restaurants in Tokyo that uses really nice fish from Tsukiji and stuff like that. So I was kind of like imagining a lot of the Italian restaurants, French restaurants, and more American restaurant will be using like a premium seafood. So, I spoke English good enough. So I thought that I could sort of like work with more like American chefs. So that was like my original like anticipation. But after I got a job, looking at all the clients list, they were pretty much all Japanese and Asian restaurants. And then, Japanese customer was like less than like 5%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, rest of the customers are mostly like a non-Japanese Asian, customers. And then, more like white tablecloth style American customers were also like less than 10%. So then I thought that I wanted to sort of focus on like marketing more toward American restaurants, like high-end steakhouse and like French restaurants, Italian restaurants. So I kept looking at menus of all those high-end like non-Asian restaurants in Boston, and then trying to find those fish on their menu and see if I could replace that fish with my own fish. Yeah, so I was really into marketing Japanese seafood into American restaurants. Yeah.
So at the time, were the American clients receptive? Did it go well? Were they reluctant? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, so I had no idea what to expect. So I just, knocked the door and then jumped into the like kitchen. And I was actually really surprised that a lot of the chefs were looking for sushi grade fish that time.
Really?
So I was more welcome than being like, not denied, but like having hard time to get into the restaurants. But as soon as I opened the door, I knocked the door, the chefs were very excited that I always said, like I work for a Japanese seafood company specializing sushi grade fish. Would you like to try our sushi grade tuna? And then they were really more excited than I expected. Wow. So that became a really exciting day-to-day, like my routine job, like trying to open up new accounts and then introduce, first starting from tuna, if they like tuna, trying to introduce like, hamachis and like more tsukiji related items. Yeah. So that was very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was about like 15 years ago?
No. So I came to Boston 2007. So 10 years, like 10, 12, 13 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's, let me see. So around that time, I think Japanese food was pretty much had entered the mainstream and there was more of an interest, but it wasn't near the level where it is now, I think, right?
Correct, definitely, yeah. Like sushi was the only thing that was defined as Japanese food at the time.
Yeah,
and it is still in other like smaller cities in America. But later, starting from New York and California, and then ramen shop became its own restaurant without the sushis. All the other types of Japanese cuisine became their own restaurant without having more sushi as part of it. So, but that's like a really recent thing, I think, still.
Yeah, yeah. Like around that time, ramen shops were still like really, really rare, I think.
I think it's around 2012 that sushi ramen started becoming very popular. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then what happens that you decide to start your own restaurant?
Yeah. So I enjoyed selling fish so much that one point I almost forgot about my own dream of opening a restaurant. Yeah, because it was so exciting. And then and I met so many great chefs and restaurant owners through my job, and then realized that there is so much that's already been done for sushi in America.
Mm-hmm.
Sushi was almost like 30 years old at that time, and then I didn't really have any clear concept of what I want to do as my own restaurant that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then so another funny thing was that the ramen started becoming very popular at that time.
Yeah.
And then I went to New York sometimes and then look at the ramen restaurants and then just realized that the ramen that was becoming very popular in New York was very kind of like straightforward tonkotsu.
Right.
Yeah. And then if I compare that sushi market, if I compare sushi market and then ramen market, I didn't think the ramen was going to be strong enough to be next sushi. Just because there was no California roll of ramen.
Yeah.
So a US sushi became so popular because it adapted and adjusted so well to fit with the market. The great example of spicy tuna rolls and the California rolls.
Sure.
Yeah, and those sushi create so many higher demands and bigger market. And then after how many years, people want super expensive omakase tasting restaurants in New York and other cities. But the ramen just came as very legit tonkotsu, and I knew how many people wouldn't eat it in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking if there's anything else that can be done for ramen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started looking at all the tuna bones that were being thrown away every day at my store. And then just started thinking how that tuna bone can be perhaps ramen by making a broth.
Mm-hmm.
And then started shifting my mind to more ramen.
Yeah.
Start testing all the tuna bones from the seafood company and then making a stock, trying to do some experiment. That's how I was more excited that I found something that no one has done here in America.
Yeah.
After looking at what was done for the sushi industry already. Mm-hmm. And I was so excited that I wanted to pursue more ramen.
Right.
Because nothing was done as much. Mm-hmm. Then my first concept became Yuji Ramen, 2012. And then the ramen was my least favorite things growing up. Yeah,
really?
Yes, it is. Yeah, my family is still surprised that I have a ramen shop.
Huh.
Yeah.
So then is the kind of your signature ramen is a fish ramen?
Yeah, it's called the tuna kotsu ramen.
Oh, wow. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, tuna you make a similar broth with tuna.
Mm-hmm.
As tonkotsu. And then it's 100% meat free ramen concept, and it tastes super good and healthy. And then Japanese word mottainai concept works very well too. Uh-huh. So that became a signature ramen.
Yeah,
definitely out of so many different kinds of ramen that I created.
Yeah,
but I also focus on what's called mazemen style ramen, the brothless ramen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then 2013, I started my ramen shop as a pop-up at the food market outside. Mm-hmm. So every weekend I started making mazemen style ramen, just like a pasta, the Italian style that I loved. And then my signature style mazemen was a bacon egg mazemen.
Really?
Yeah. You can really find it everywhere with my articles. And then, the bacon egg mazemen is like a ramen carbonara, sort of like, kind of like takoyaki style because it's got katsuobushi and everything. But I would say my signature ramen is bacon egg mazemen and also tunakotsu ramen.
Yeah. Where did the idea for the bacon egg come from?
Bacon egg idea came from carbonara. Yeah, I love carbonara.
Oh, nice.
And then I wanted to create something that is very familiar to American customers. Bacon egg is like a breakfast, right? Sure. Like people really react well to it. So and it tastes great too. So, and it's very original. That's why I wanted to create something like California roll, spicy tuna roll with ramen, and another great concept to mazemen was a salmon cheese mazemen.
Oh,
salmon cheese like a bagel, right? But it works so well with ramen as a ramen. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. No, those are such great like entry points, right? Like,
entry point. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets you curious. You try it, and then after you try that, then you go, maybe I'll try the more quote unquote traditional or something like that.
Yeah. That's why I just thought that people needed more entry level ramen that are interesting so that they would try it. Yeah, not everybody was going to just jump on tonkotsu ramen. Yeah, in America. That's, although the tonkotsu ramen is growing so hard, but I thought that there is something else.
So you start as a pop-up, but then you open an actual physical location, right? Yeah.
After years of pop-up at the food market, and also I worked with the Whole Foods market for 2 years as well as a residency. Yeah, and I opened my own restaurant, Okonomi, and Yuji Ramen, and then started providing traditional Japanese breakfast in the morning and lunch, and then turned that into a ramen shop in the evening. Yeah.
Okay. So, so then you did that for a few years, but then you decide to open the fish market, Osakana, as well, right?
Yeah.
So how did that happen? I saw like you did a Kickstarter. Seems like a very interesting path that you went on to open that.
Thank you for noticing. So my food, whether it's ramen and then whether it was breakfast, was always based on fresh seafood. And then I started having customers asking where to buy good fish. And then with my professional seafood background, I couldn't really recommend any fish market, especially my friends were looking for sushi grade fish to make, hantemakis and sushi at home. And then at that time, my wife from Japan also relocated to New York. And then she was telling me that she was tired of pork and chicken every day. And then she said that I have to open a fish market.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, then I should probably do it. And I didn't really think that there would be enough people to become a business.
Yeah.
So I'm still surprised that I'm still alive with this business.
Yeah. It seems like it's been doing quite well. You've had so many articles written about you. It seems like it's been very popular.
Yeah. Osakana, especially with Corona. Before Corona, we had a lot of customers interested in sushi making class, and there was no many classes focused on sushi making. So I took a lot of the class customers and then told customers how to make sushi. It can be a fun activities, especially temaki concept, not so much maki. Yeah. And then that has become its own way of enjoying sushi at home, I feel like, recently. Yeah. And then sushi is popular because it's a great dining out experience. But I just realized how much there is a potential for quality sushi to enjoy at home, whether it's by DIY or by deliveries. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So you were offering classes at Osakana, but now are you doing the classes online?
So I don't offer much classes online. Yeah, I just try to create some videos sometimes for just simple questions that people always ask for. And I always try to focus on in-person classes as much as possible. So I restarted doing classes more as a private classes instead of group classes. So I still do classes once a week. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. So I was watching the videos that you have on YouTube. I think I watched like every single one except like maybe I think I missed one video, but yeah, they were all really interesting. I learned a lot. I mean, you offer like a lot of great information that people I think most of the time have no idea about.
No, yeah, but it's so simple too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, for example, like I think the last one that you have up right now was about how to shuck sea urchins.
Oh, yeah.
And like cutting open with the scissors in this little circle so you get out all the meat inside. Like, I've never seen that before, so that was really interesting.
So, like, I also had no idea, like, what I did for the fish company.
Yeah.
Was interesting for customers. For us, like cutting fish, like opening up sea urchins, those things were like our day-to-day work. And then I didn't think that was going to be interesting enough for people to pay money and actually experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually also noticed that was a demand because of the growing tourists coming to Japan and visit the fish market. Fish market itself can be a tourism almost. Yeah, that's why I thought that having the opportunity to experience seafood is still very unique and special. And then especially quality is good. People are going to enjoy.
Yeah. Is there any like mistakes or misconceptions that are like any of the most common ones that you can think of, like about fish, buying fish, or anything preparing fish that you can think of?
I think misperception is wild versus farm raised.
Yeah.
A lot of people think wild is always better. And then a lot of people think the wild is better for even sushi, but it's not always true. Yeah. And then the farm raised fish is much safer when it comes to raw fish consumption because there's no parasite. And then the wild fish is, of course, good, but there can be a potential parasites depending on what fish it is. So you kind of have to be careful if you were trying to eat it raw. And then and the farm raised fish doesn't really mean that it's any better or worse than the wild fish. It's so much about the end use of what you're trying to do. Yeah. Then you kind of have to, decide, I want to go farm raised salmon. I want to go wild salmon. Yeah. That kind of thing. So yeah, there is really no like any better or worse. Yeah.
Right.
When it comes to wild and farm. Yeah.
Yeah, like there in I would often hear from people, and well, maybe not often, but some people in Japan would tell me, in Japan we didn't used to eat salmon because the wild salmon had parasites, but it's only more recent that people in Japan would start eating raw salmon, right?
Yep. With mayonnaise. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's super common.
Yeah, kaiten sushi made it so popular. Yeah. But they all come from Norway. People never use wild salmons for that kind of things. Yeah.
Right. Another interesting thing that I didn't really know much about was when you freeze salmon, or not salmon, well, fish, I think, right? You have to like salt it, try to get all the moisture out, right?
Yeah, those always help. And then those are the really things that makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, like keeping the ventilation too, right? Like even if you seal it, you have to poke some holes in the plastic wrap. So
yep, it's like of humans. People, cannot always run with the sauna suits. If it's wet, you're gonna have to, you need clothes. Like the awesome underwear. Always let the things dry out. The same thing, pretty much. Yeah. But if I make that kind of analogies and like connections to people's everyday life, people understand it very quickly.
Yeah.
That's something that I always try to find and also teach, share with the customers.
Yeah. No, it's very easy to remember, right? You get that image in your head and it kind of sticks in there instead of just like often like maybe in a cookbook you'll see like do this, and then you're kind of overwhelmed.
And then especially like sushi has became such a mysterious cuisine for a lot of people here. I feel like that's why, like making sushi at home is something that people always stay away, I guess. I feel like because, like you have to spend, X amount of years for, washing rice and, before touching fish. There is such such word for those chefs. But if you think about my families and friends in Japan, they always make sushi at homes. And then, there is so many different types of experience. Yeah. Not always like luxurious, expensive sushi. That's only one way of enjoying. So I just wanted to offer different experience styles pretty much. Yeah.
So this is something that you talked about in the videos too, but I think since we're talking about sushi here, it might be good to explain. But what distinguishes sushi grade from other kinds of fish? What's sushi grade fish?
Yeah. So what sushi grade means is really about what fish it is, and then also the freshness, also the way you handle it. So those three things really make sushi grade fish different from other kind of fish. So what species? You have to use fish that's from the ocean, saltwater fish. Freshwater fish is not good because it's got very muddy flavors and also got more parasites than the saltwater fish. And even with a saltwater fish, you have to choose the fish that is not with a parasite, such as tuna, and then some smaller snapper, porgies, that kind of thing. And also, even if you know those things, if you handle it wrong, you spoil the fish by, messing up the temperature control of the fish, dirty cutting board, or the sanitation thing. So those three factors have to be all in place in order to call it as a sushi grade fish. Yeah.
Has it become easier to get sushi grade fish now? Was it more difficult when you started? Have you noticed any change?
I do not think so, because when I was sourcing fish from Japan and US both, I always knew that the US fish can be as good as Japanese fish if it's transported well. So I do get like a quarter of the fish that we sell at Osakana are domestic fish.
Oh, okay.
Mostly wild Spanish mackerel, tilefish, and black sea bass, and those things. And then my supplier is my also business partner and also my older senpai from the same fish company. So they all know how to pick sushi grade freshness of domestic fish as well. And then I just have to make sure that I have a super freezer to, ensure that parasites controls, and also just the way we break down the fish and clean the fish, storing the fish. I make sure that it's same as a sushi restaurant's level. So it's so much more about the handling and purchasing rather than like the fisherman itself. They can bring in good fish. It's really more about how we're gonna use it after they catch it.
Okay. I know you also opened restaurants in Japan, right?
Yeah. So Tokyo, I was invited to do a ramen residency at Shin Yokohama Ramen Museum for about 2 years.
Okay, yeah, I've been there.
So I introduced my Brooklyn style tunakotsu ramen for about 2 years. And after that, I opened a breakfast restaurant in Kyoto, Rorimar Kyoto, and also my ramen shop, Yuji Ram in Tokyo, So
how has that been? Like, because you're New York and Japan, and you have how many locations now?
Yeah. So first I was managing the restaurant, but I just realized it was physically not feasible. So I just have a business partners in Japan now, so they will manage it for me. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I tried it and I just realized, it doesn't necessarily work out. Yeah.
It's well, for example, are you familiar with Agu ramen?
Agu?
Yeah, Agu. No.
No.
So, well, they're a chain that started in Hawaii and then they started to expand really quickly. And unfortunately, last year they went out of business. So, as you expand, of course, it becomes really difficult to keep track of everything. And you've been expanding, but it seems like you've been able to keep everything under control and make sure that you don't expand too quickly.
Yeah. I almost went into that direction, but I was very fortunate that I had people who jumped in and helped me to manage the business. So mostly now I focus on New York right now. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you see the Japanese food industry right now? I like we said earlier, it's grown a lot, but do you think there's still a lot of potential? There's still a lot of aspects that we can teach, Americans about? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think there is so much growth still. And then I feel like, like I always compare the food industry is like such a hard industry compared to other industries, especially, for the growth and then pay and everything. Yeah. But if you think about the Japanese product outside of Japan, like Sony used to be strong and then the Panasonic used to be strong. And then all the, Japanese electronics have decreased. I feel like, like the Japanese cell phone was much stronger when it started. Then Apple came in, everybody use iPhone right now. And I feel like the Japanese manufacturing industries, global competition is becoming harder and harder. But food is growing. That's how I feel like Japanese food itself as a market is only growing globally. That's how strong Japanese food itself is, I feel like, as a product, and then it's not always made by Japanese people. It's normal. It's outside the country, but Japanese food itself is such a strong product. Whether it's sushi, ramen, it's very distinct from other countries' food. And then especially sushi, if you go to so many different countries now, everybody loves sushi. Yeah. So I feel like Japanese food will only grow. Interest and also the market itself. I think more and more.
Yeah. Do you think any specific area, like for example, ramen had a big boom? Do you think that's going to continue, or do you think like something new is going to come in?
I think that it's going to be sushi and ramen. Yeah, definitely. And then those two are a little bit easier to produce compared to others, I feel like. Yeah, if it's like soba and udon, you have to think about the noodles, and also it's not as addictive as ramen, I think. Yeah, I think. And then I think sushi always first and ramen next. I don't think that's gonna change as much. But if you look at Southeast Asia right now, it's like so many. I went there, Bangkok recently, and then the ramen is so popular. And so is sushi too. And then if those two, markets grow, other types of Japanese food will come after. Definitely. Yeah. I've talked to several Japanese, ramen shop business owners here in Hawaii, and it's been more than once that I've heard that they have locations in Southeast Asia as well. Yeah, right.
I was very surprised by that, but I guess it's going through a boom over there.
Yeah, because, like Asia has very big noodle cultures. And then, like especially noodles is more, I feel like noodle itself as a culture globally is much larger than the rice culture. So I feel like the ramen noodles is going to be, I think more in Southeast Asia. Because, people use chopsticks and it's more familiar way of eating, whether it's rice noodles or ramen noodles. Yeah.
What about like ingredients? For example, like I saw that you make your own like sushi rice vinegar. Like, is it easy to get a lot of the ingredients that you get? Is that not a problem anymore?
Yeah, I don't think the ingredients are gonna be much more issue compared to before. A lot of the big companies are making a lot of the things outside of Japan, so that the sourcing will be much easier and it won't be as expensive as getting from Japan. And then I'm not sure about the noodles itself yet, but as far as I understand, especially in America, the rice is grown in California, koshihikari grain and pretty high qualities. And then like some noodles, Hawaii's.
Yeah, Sun Noodle. Yeah. I've met the owner, Uki-san.
Uki-san came from Utsunomiya, actually.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I kind of know his story, but I didn't realize that he was from Utsunomiya.
Utsunomiya, and then I used their noodles for my ramen museum.
Wow, yeah. Like I know Uki-san and Sun Noodle, they're really influential in spreading like accessible noodles here in the US, right?
So like the seafood company that I work for, True World Foods, they started in 1980. And then I always was taught that the sushi industry was not able to grow as much if there was no fish company.
Yeah.
Same thing as ramen. If the noodle company was not here making noodles for ramen restaurants cannot be this many. So you really need a company that will support the premium ingredients for the food to grow as a market.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, no, that's great. I mean, I remember... So, yeah, I think the first time that I went to Japan was in 2004 or... No, a little bit later. But anyway, after I came back... I wanted, some Japanese food. I wanted ramen, and I was in Florida at the time, and unfortunately, I couldn't get anything good. It was all very disappointing. But nowadays it's so much easier. Yeah, so much easier. So it's I love it. I mean, in Hawaii, of course, it's even easier. But yeah. So what about this past year with the coronavirus? How have things been? How have you adapted?
Mm-hmm. So like I was, my breakfast restaurant, Okonomi and Yuji Ramen. Yeah, we switched to more like only takeout models, and then the Okonomi breakfast itself can be a really good bento box. So we started creating a lot of different bento boxes, and then the ramen I just kept it only as a mazemen to go instead of a broth ramen. So for the purpose of safety and also convenience, the brothless ramen travels so well, and then it tastes good always compared to broth-based ramen for takeout. So that was really good. And also the Osakana, when we switched the model, no more class, only fish retail. Yeah, we expanded a lot of the products. So that it'll become much easier for customers to do DIY sushi at home. So adding rice, adding more vinegars, adding more bamboo mat rolls, and like trying to focus more as a retail grocery store. And then that worked very well. And then we added more sushi, omakase, sashimi, higher qualities, and then customers started reacting well for more premium products, so much more than I expected. So like before, the takeout food was, like when the restaurant was 100% in operation, takeout food was more of a like last minute option. I feel like so people didn't really.
Takeout was like fast and cheap food usually.
Yeah. And then people get full, and then people are fine because it's a takeout. But now there's a different kind of a need for takeout food to be more premium, and then premium experience. So upgrading our packages, and then trying to make our product more premium from Japan, that kind of thing. That has worked, I think, very well. So it was very interesting learning to see what the customers' demands have changed just throughout the year. And then I'm sure it's going to change again as more dining, like indoor, are going to be opened up more. So I want to see how, customers are going to change their way of eating in general. Yeah. But I feel like the more premium takeout experience is something that I would like to focus on more and more. Yeah. Well,
I'm glad that you were able to adapt. I know this was a very, very difficult time for restaurant owners and all that, but I'm glad that it seems that things are going okay for you.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And like I said, I really enjoyed the videos, so I will include links to the videos in the show notes for the episode. And I very much look forward to my next visit to New York so I can try some of those things that you were talking about, the bacon egg and the tuna kotsu. Yeah, no, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
One more thing I didn't mention is that Yuji does sell some Japanese food products as well. All that stuff is on his website, so I'll include links to all that stuff in the show notes. And of course, I'll also include the links to the videos and the YouTube channel for Osakana, where he teaches a lot of really interesting and pretty useful stuff. If you're at all interested in preparing fish or learning more about how to prepare fish, well, go check that out. There's some really, really good information there. If you want to support the show, one other thing that you can do is use the Amazon affiliate link, japankyo.com/Amazon. It won't cost you anything extra when you purchase something on Amazon using that link, but it will send a tiny percentage over here so that I can pay the bills and keep the show moving along. I have seen that a few people have used the link for whatever it is you purchased, I don't know, but I certainly appreciate whenever people use that. So thank you. And also, if you're curious about Sun Noodle, because that came up in the conversation, it may have confused a few of you, but basically they're a company that produces noodles, and they are one of the biggest, if not the biggest supplier of Japanese-style noodles in the U.S., and they're based in Hawaii, but I think they have at least one production facility on the East Coast, maybe New Jersey. And Uki-san, who is the owner, Mr. Uki, he really, well, Sun Noodle and Uki-san, they were really, really important in helping spread like authentic, and by authentic, I mean the kind of ramen noodles that you get in Japan, right? Because up until they came around, I think it was much, much harder to do that. So if you were familiar with ramen in Japan and then you ate ramen here in the US, you were more often than not disappointed, I think. So thanks to Sun Noodle and probably other factors, but Sun Noodle was an important factor. Noodles like the kind that you normally get in Japan became far, far more available. So thank you, Sun Noodle. But anyway, if you have any questions or comments, send them over to mail@japanstationpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. All that stuff helps immensely. Follow on Facebook and Twitter @JapanKyo News. And of course, thank you to Yunomi for providing the opening and closing song, Oedo Controller. More information can be found in the show notes. That does it for this episode. The next one will be out on May 1st, so come back for that. I won't say what it will be about because I'm still juggling a few different guests and episodes, but May 1st, you'll have a new episode waiting for you, or it will be delivered to you if you subscribe. So why not go do that now? Also, don't forget to check out the latest episode of Ichimon Japan. It's episode 41, and that one is all about the fact that supposedly the correct way to count rabbits in Japanese is to use the counter that is used to count birds. And if that confuses you, well, it kind of should, because it's a very peculiar quirk of the Japanese language. And we talk about some theories of why this is, and we go all into the history of meat taboo and meat bans in Japan. So if you're curious about that, go check out Ichimon Japan, Ichimon. You can find it on your podcast app, link in the show notes. That is episode 41. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, go find your miniature pony.
Just do it!